ups and downs for the Chinese market since then. Do you think this is a sustainable rally?
It's a good rebound. So I think, before it really evolved into a multi-year sort of a rising trend, a lot needs to be done. And for now, I think many of us are still seeing fundamental problem with the Chinese economy. So as such, the earnings growth hasn't been sustainable for some time. For the past 10 years, earnings per share in the Chinese market is more or less the same. So basically, the change in the stock price level has been the result of changing in valuation multiples. So if you really want a sustainable bull market for the long term, you really want a sustainable growth model going forward.
There's a lot of optimism about these cheaper AI models, and perhaps that China could lead the way when it comes to the new tech revolution. Could that sustain those expectations?
I think for now, people are really enthusiastic by the prospect of it. I think DeepSeek did a really good job to break the technology hegemony and the embargo from the U.S. Now, having said that, though, I think it's still very difficult to see how to monetize from this app. And also, Chinese are renowned for not willing to pay for software. So I think if you look at back in the 90s, right, so when Windows was first introduced to China, so basically 99% of the copies used in the market is actually pirated copies, right, all the way until like 10, 15 years later. So, it's a difficult market to monetize. I think it's still very early stage. It's a huge breakthrough, but then at the same time, for now, I don't see a good way to monetize it.
Does the Xi Jinping meeting, the idea of Beijing's endorsement for the sector now, does that still have the same power that it would have used to as some sort of government put?
I think back in 2018, November 2018, there was a similar meeting with the private entrepreneurs in Beijing. And back then, it was at the depths of the trade war back then. And the Chinese market didn't bottom until like 2-3 months later in January 2019. So that is telling you a lot about, the signals from these meetings can be fleeting. And also yesterday, if you look at the market reaction, firstly, the market was rising strongly in Hong Kong, but then regurgitated a lot of the gains towards the end. And also yesterday's, the best performing sector is actually the SOE sectors. The private sectors, for some reason, is lagging substantially yesterday.
And I'm guessing you think that none of this exuberance or that we've seen so far is enough to counterbalance against the broader economic malaise, the property overhang. What more can the government do from a policy perspective to really change the mindset there?
Yeah, I think so far this technical rebound has been a result of the sentiment change, right? So because the DeepSeek moment really woke up the Chinese investment community and see, wow, what is possible, right, going forward. And also the Chinese tech sector valuation has been depressed for a long time. And some of the foreign investors have been buying, for a sort of a trading opportunity. And I think that sort of set off the rally in the past months or so. I think right now, we're running into a very strong resistance level, right? So these are key technical levels, and many of our technical indicators are actually running into very strong resistance. Right? So for the market to go substantially higher from here, a lot needs to be done. A lot of policies needs to be set, in March in the coming twin sessions.
Always with the voice of caution there, but I really find it interesting, the timing that you have President Xi Jinping putting all of these tech leaders like in the forefront of what he's trying to achieve. How much is this to do with the Trump trade tensions, with potentially the rivalry that's just going to heat up in the next few years, and how Beijing needs to position for that? And given that sort of external threat, could you see it being more proactive in terms of helping the private sector?
I think to a certain extent, China needs the private sector to be strong more than ever now. I think, the government is indeed, trying to help the private sector to a certain extent. But, having said that, in the past few years, what gets really strong is the SOE sectors. Right? So the resources is really going into the SOE sectors. And because of the incentive system, the commercial banks are lending sort of towards the SOE sectors rather than to the private sectors, because if your loan goes sour, you have to be responsible, right? Even if you left the job, Right, so that's the reason why the private sector is not getting enough credit, and if they really want to grow, they have to find a way to get credit from the banking system. Now with DeepSeek, for some reason, you use DeepSeek as an example, right? So the founder is actually a hedge fund tycoon, right? He's loaded, right? So he has money he's willing to burn, and also for his own business, he's been using AI algorithm, to trade, to make money from the Chinese market, and has been very successful. And so I think DeepSeek is one of those sort of accidental sort of fortune that the founder used his own money to burn, and there's a very limited government intervention, and therefore DeepSeek was able to flourish under such system. I think to replicate the success of DeepSeek really needs a really hands-off approach from the government.
I wanted to get your views on Alibaba, because I do wonder, with this sort of return to the fold with Jack Ma, how much could we see a re-reversal of Baba's fortunes, right? Because you can take a look on that chart. 2020 November, when the Ant IPO was called off, we've not even seen, with the recent recovery, that stock price even halfway back to the previous levels. Do you think that this is the start of a meaningful improvement?
Yeah, I think BABA has done a lot of work in the past few years, right? So I think it is actually leading the AI investments in China, right? So a lot of people didn't see the efforts, the endeavors that is being sort of undertaken by BABA. Having said that, though, the stock has rallied for like more than 50% now. All right, so even though it's down substantially from the peak in 2021. People still need to see earnings growth from this company, and also sort of a better sort of a reception from the government for BABA, and also for the entire private enterprise, for people to pick up confidence again in these sectors.